and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News, Meet the Candidate. Today we are here with Dan Muroff, candidate for the 7th Congressional District. Dan has built a career advocating for our seniors, children, working families, and the environment. Dan has led efforts to aid women transitioning into the workforce, expedite federal funds to build affordable housing for people with disabilities, and secure funding for neighborhood improvements. Committed to change, Dan served as the president of the board of CeaseFirePA, Pennsylvania's statewide gun violence prevention organization. In that role, he helped lead efforts to curb gun violence across the state and stop reckless state and federal legislation that would have put more guns in the hands of criminals. Dan also served as president of Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, promoting sound and sustainable environmental policy while fighting efforts that would have devastating environmental consequences. Dan, thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Larry, thank you. Thank you for coming here to our congressional campaign office. We're at 2 West Baltimore Avenue in Media, and we're open every day of the week, and we're excited to be here, and I'm thrilled to have you come. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today, Dan. Dan, you served as the president of the board of CeaseFirePA, Pennsylvania's statewide gun violence program. Can you tell us about that?
Well, sure. I've had a whole long history of working in civic engagement, advancing progressive causes. And one of them that I got involved in back in the mid-2000s was on the board of CeaseFirePA. CeaseFire is our statewide gun violence prevention organization. Very well-respected organization that has made a tremendous impact in halting, arresting some of the more onerous legislation at the state level that some folks, some members of the legislature have tried to advance. I'm proud of not only serving on that board, but also serving as its president for a few years. And we accomplished a lot. We may not have moved the needle forward with a particularly difficult legislature on a whole lot of issues, but we certainly prevented a lot of bad stuff from happening. And I think I'm excited to be associated with the organization. It's done a lot of great work, and I still do what I can to help and support them.
Dan, there's one NRA, and there are so many pro or anti-gun legislation groups. Does there need to be more organization here?
Well, it's a fair question. First of all, I've been taking on the NRA for a very long time. As president of CeaseFirePA, I was clearly somebody. I'm not on their Christmas card list. But I think that as far as organizations that advance at the legislative level, statewide, and get involved from Pennsylvania to at least give some attention to federal concerns, CeaseFirePA is the leader, and a lot of the other organizations work in coordination. Here in Delaware County, we have Delco United for Sensible Gun Laws, a terrific organization that works at the grassroots level. And these organizations can work in concert, and they have different focus, and but they all work collaboratively to advance the same mission. I actually think that there are not too many gun violence prevention organizations. They all have a very clear mission, and CeaseFirePA is our Pennsylvania statewide advocacy organization.
The NRA is one of the most powerful groups. Are you playing against a stacked deck with their funding that they have?
Well, so the NRA has been successful because people have been electing people who support the NRA, even if they may disagree with them. So I would say this: the way that we win on this issue, and we can win on this issue, the way that we win on this issue is by making sure that when you go to the voting booth, give serious consideration to a candidate's position on gun violence prevention. It matters a lot in a primary. You've got 2 Democrats running, for instance, and one is really good on gun violence prevention, and another is not so good. Think about that a lot. In a primary in particular, it matters.
Dan, you were also president of Conservation Voters. What is Conservation Voters?
Well, Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania is our state chapter of the National League of Conservation Voters. And the League is a venerable organization that advances environmental causes nationally. Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania focuses on our state issues, environmental issues. So with a massive expansion of Marcellus shale gas drilling, we've seen the real importance of environmental groups like Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania to give attention to the amount of money that's flowing into the legislators' pockets, or that is to say, into their campaign accounts. And I was proudly, at the time that I served as president of the organization, proudly helped to lead efforts to create Marcellus money, which was a means to track all of the campaign contributions that were going to state legislators and other elected officials in Pennsylvania, so that we could at least know who was getting how much from the gas drilling and oil drilling interest in Pennsylvania. You know, sunlight's the best disinfectant, and if we can keep a spotlight on the way that money flows, it's our best effort to at least hold people accountable.
So you're saying that the battle against the Marcellus, the natural gas industry, is financially related, just like the NRA.
Absolutely, absolutely. All these interests, money influences politics. Obviously, it does. And unfortunately, we've seen the erosion of the protections, the guardrails of the kinds of what I would consider really important protections for the public. And Citizens United is an organization dedicated to ending that, what I think was a terribly flawed Supreme Court decision that allows for every private interest, including corporate interests, to advance through paid media or TV commercials or whatever they want to do, as long as they don't coordinate with a campaign, to spend whatever they can to advance an interest of theirs to support a candidate that they want to advance.
So you need the public participation. Because
Absolutely.
Because what you said you do is you track. So how does the public assist conservation voters in doing this?
Well, Conservation Voters Pennsylvania has a website that tracks the Marcellus money, and it keeps it keeps a scorecard effectively. They also have a scorecard. That is what Conservation Voters Pennsylvania and League of Conservation Voters have always done, which is maintaining a scorecard of the voting records of the elected officials in office. So that would be at the federal level. All the federal office holders have a scorecard with the League of Conservation Voters, and at the state level, all of the state legislators also have a scorecard. So all of that is exposed, and that exposure, to me, is the first step that you need as a citizen to be informed and know where your legislator is and where you should put your attention and your vote.
And what is the relationship between what you call Marcellus money, the money the legislators get, and their voting record?
Well, most of the money goes to Republicans in the legislature, and a lot of it goes to Republican leadership who have been unwilling, unyielding in their opposition to a severance tax on the extracted gas from the Marcellus shale across Pennsylvania. There's been a massive expansion of gas drilling in Pennsylvania, and that happened. It was discovered back about 2010. The means to extract it through horizontal fracking. The DEP under the Corbett administration had its budget cut during this massive expansion of fossil fuel drilling, and I think we went the wrong direction. And I can tell you, I'm glad that there are organizations like Conservation Voters, with which I'm associated, having served on the board and having served as president for 2 years, and other organizations like CeaseFirePA with gun violence prevention, but all of these organizations that expose the way that money flows and how people vote.
Dan, I understand that you work with nonprofits and you fundraise for them. And again, you fight some giants. You fight the Marcellus shale industry and you fight the NRA. So tell us about the importance of raising money for the nonprofits you represent. What do you do for them?
Well, I help a lot of charitable and arts and cultural not-for-profits for the most part. That's the discipline that I've developed as an attorney. I help them navigate the state process for the most part in securing funds through capital programs and also through the Department of Human Services. I work with an organization called Career Wardrobe. They help women transitioning into the workforce. And they were a rather small organization 8-10 years ago, and what we've been able to do is help them facilitate expansion with the Department of Human Services as a partner at the state level, to where now their footprint is not just half of Philadelphia, it's all of Philadelphia and all of suburban counties. And what they provide is professional attire and more to women transitioning into the workforce. They do resume training and other skills services to those who are in need. They actually a couple of years ago expanded to men, so their profile is a little bit broader too. I work with an organization called Liberty Resources. They are a center for independent living for southeastern Pennsylvania, and I help them navigate some of the. Actually, it's primarily for housing services for people who want to live independently but have disabilities. So it's exciting, important work. It is. I take that commitment to helping them secure funding to this campaign too. We have our campaign office here. We have a full complement of staff and consultants, and we've been raising money. And that's unfortunately, it's the way, like it or not, is the way that we can make sure that we can get our message out about our campaign, about what our priorities are. Without resources, you're not able to do that. So we're in the lead on that, and I'm proud to say it is with an eye towards the importance of being able to communicate our message. So I'm excited about the direction we're going.
Dan, you were in Congress as a legislative aide for 7 years, did you say?
I was, yeah.
So you know how things get done.
I was actually served as a senior legislative assistant, as a designee to the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and I was also a chief of staff to a member of Congress for most of the 7 years that I served on the Hill.
So what is going wrong in the modern era, and what needs to happen to fix it?
Well, we saw hints of it a long time ago. I reach back to Ronald Reagan. I think that he started with a quip, a joke. I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help. And he made that a punchline. Right? But government does do good things. Government does important things. Government's there as a safety net for people who need it, but it's also there to provide a secure a retirement for people with Social Security. Needs to be robust so that people aren't living in abject poverty in their senior years. That's Social Security, but there's also Medicaid and Medicare and other programs that help the disabled. And we have been attacked, well, not Democrats, but Republicans have kind of grabbed that mantle and have decided that government's the enemy. Grover Norquist, who famously said, and he's he is avowedly anti-tax and has many members of Congress and other legislators sign pledges against any taxation, any new taxation. And he famously said he wants to take government and drown it in a bathtub. I think that's dangerous. What are we without a set of laws and rules and government? When I was on the Hill, and I was on the Hill from 1996 until 2003, and then I was back again during Joe Huffle's last year, helped in his campaign, but also then in his congressional office. When I was on the Hill, things were balkanized, but the degree of tension that we're seeing, I think, is also fed by people being in their own echo chambers, whether they get their news or the communications from Facebook or from Fox News or other news outlets on the left. We find ourselves in a climate that is, I think it's we need people who are going to be in Congress who know how to get things done, who know how to work with people and to raise the important issues. and to put exposure and to put daylight on those things.
And you jumped into the race. You're running for the 7th Congressional District. What got you involved?
I've been involved in civic causes all of my life. As you know, I worked on the Hill, but I'm going to start to tell you it's from my childhood. It was something that when my mother worked for the school district of Philadelphia. I was raised in Havertown, and I grew up in a twin home, in a sort of traditional suburban upbringing. But my mother, who worked for the school district of Philadelphia, dedicated a lot of her time to the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, where she not only served on the board, but she served on the executive committee. She was secretary of the board for many years in my youth. So I was raised in a union household, and my mother was fighting for causes when I was a kid on the picket lines virtually. If it wasn't every year, it felt like it was every year. My childhood, she was out there fighting for good wages for herself and her family, but also for those who are working. And those are my values. And if I'm elected to Congress, that's what I'm going to fight for. I'm going to fight for working people. And I also share with you another story that is very relevant in my family, in my upbringing. I had a sister who had a very severe substance abuse problem, and it devolved into a heroin addiction. And it didn't end well. And so about 20 years ago, she disappeared in Kensington. It's a sad story, but you know, the reality is, it was my entire youth. I was 3 years old when she went the wrong direction, and then I was 28 when she disappeared. And I share this story because it is the opioid addiction crisis is a crisis nationally, but it's more prevalent in Pennsylvania than in most jurisdictions, and Delaware County is really, it is a hot spot. And I am committed, if elected, when elected, to advance not just affordable, accessible health care for everybody, but more funding for treatment, because I think that's where we're going astray. We're not giving enough attention to those who are struggling, but also as a member of a family who went through a crisis and dealt with, you don't know what you go through as a family until you go through this. You don't know what people go through. It's devastating. And I think more has to be done sort of holistically, both for the person who's addicted, but also family members who are going through sometimes codependency, which my mother went through. So those are the things I want to fight for. I've been committed to public service all of my life, and I've been committed to the causes I think that are most important for people in Delaware County and throughout this district.
Dan, we're going to leave it there. I want to thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
We have been here with Dan Muroff, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this video, please don't forget to forward it to all your friends on your contact list and Facebook friends. And if you like this channel, please don't forget to click the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We are signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now. Dan, why should people vote for you?
Larry, thank you for asking, and thank you for the opportunity to present. Just a little bit of background on me. I'm originally from Havertown, born and raised there, lived there beyond my formative years until I was 25 years old. Was raised in a union household. My mother served on the executive committee of the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, was on the picket lines many years when I was a kid. Those are her values, those are my values. Those are the values I want to fight for if I'm elected to Congress. As I've shared with many people, I have a regrettable story to share, but I think it's really important and relevant today. I had a sister who had a very severe substance abuse problem. It did not end well. It devolved into a heroin addiction, and she disappeared in Kensington some 20 years ago. It's not an uncommon story. It's unfortunately a very, very common story, particularly here in Delaware County. But I am committed to doing what is necessary to fight for dollars and for attention at the federal level to increase treatment options for those who are suffering from opioid addiction, but also to support the families who are dealing with this. As I said, I was raised in a very traditional suburban home in Havertown. I went to Drexel University as a commuter, and then I worked in the environmental industry for a couple of years as a field chemist before I went to law school in Chicago. After that, I went to Washington. I worked on Capitol Hill, and I worked on issues like the environment, healthcare, labor, transportation issues. And if I'm elected, I'll continue to fight for those causes, because I served as Chief of Staff to a member of Congress for most of the 7 years I was there. I know how to get things done. My wife and I then returned to Philadelphia and in the Philadelphia area. And in this time that I've been here, I've been working as president of the board of CeaseFirePA, our statewide gun violence prevention organization, which is, I'm committed to fighting for sensible gun violence protection laws, because I think that gun violence is preventable. And I've also served as president of the board of Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, which is our state chapter of the National League of Conservation Voters, because I believe we have a fiduciary to the next generation to be good stewards of the environment. And when I hear this administration talking about putting somebody forward to head the EPA who doesn't believe in climate science, or somebody to head the Department of Labor who doesn't believe in organized labor, and the list goes on, I'm alarmed, like many others. So I'm committed to doing what's necessary. And I believe that I have the right background, the right temperament, and the right experience to lead this district and to represent the people of Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to have this opportunity. Thank you, Larry.